You asked for it. It's back. SCW Rewind is here for you today. Going to be reviewing Elimination Chamber 2018. I've got a very special guest joining me in a couple of seconds, but first off, let's hit up that intro. It's good to have it back. So without further ado, then let's get our very special guest here on the channel. He is the analytical assassin, and that's right, it is the one, the only, Aaron Wrestling by Wooldridge is in the house. How are you doing, my good friends?
I'm all good, thanks, mate. I'm glad to hear that analytical assassin that's getting over, which is good to see. Great to be. Sorry.
I loved the hashtag when I saw it the other day. I was like, yes, that is such a cool one. That's going to catch on very, very quickly. For those that aren't aware of your stuff, please just tell them about your channel. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're all right, mate. So as I said, I do some analysis videos. I'm also branching out a bit, so doing predictions, some topical videos here and there. Just a bit of everything, to be honest. Just a wrestling fan like you guys. So yeah, please come and check me out. But unfortunately, I can't take the credit for being analytical assassin. That was actually BZ Hunter from Wrestling with the Truth podcast. He just gave that to me one day and he was like, yeah, run with that. I was like, yeah, got to. So, yeah.
No. Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I've got to say, it's a great shout for the new nickname and it's amazing content as well. I believe you're also coming back with your Under Analysis series very shortly.
Yeah, next week should be coming back with Under Analysis Season 2. So, yeah, really looking forward to kick that off.
Absolutely. Well, it's really exciting indeed. Well, the name of the game today, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the Elimination Chamber 2018, the retro review. Now, just a little bit of detail going into this show. If you weren't aware of it, of course, this is now 4 years ago. How quick does time fly? We've got the first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match that takes place on this show. As well as that, also, we've got the Men's Elimination Chamber match. But this is the one and only time we had 7 competitors in this chamber match, and also not forgetting that all of them had gone through a 2-hour gauntlet match on the Raw before that show. So lots of fun, lots of things to detail to go into, and also Ronda Rousey returning last weekend at the Royal Rumble, of course. Well, on this show, she'd obviously come at the Royal Rumble in 2018. She'd signed her contract with WWE during this show as well. So there's lots of stuff that feels quite topical, lots of stuff that kind of fits in, even though it's only a few years ago. So I'm kind of looking forward to diving into this. And what were your thoughts when you first heard that this was going to be the show we were going to review?
Yeah, definitely pretty happy about it. I remember this one being one of the better chamber matches. Obviously, it's quite significant with it being the first women's elimination chamber, obviously with Rousey as well. And I thought it would be quite interesting to see, like, talk about what it was like when she came, like, first debuted at this point. And obviously, she's just come back last week in the Rumble just to see the difference in reception. But yeah, definitely looking forward to getting into this one.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, for those then that would like to know those inner details, don't worry, we will give those star ratings by Mr. Dave Meltzer, and we'll give you all the bit of information you just need because, well, this show took place on February 25th in 2018. The host city was Las Vegas, Nevada in the T-Mobile Arena. And of course, this was at the point where we still had, obviously, the brand split pay-per-view. So this was an all Raw event. There was no SmackDown matches, no SmackDown superstars, no SmackDown announcers. During this show, we had the commentary team of Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and who can forget Jonathan Coachman. Now, what did you think of that lineup?
Yeah, I did. To be honest, I can't remember too much of them being together because I don't think Coach was back for too long, was he? So I kind of went into it with an open mind. Yeah, we'll get on to sort of what I thought of the three as the show goes on, but yeah, I was open to it for sure.
Absolutely. Well, there was definitely some fun moments for sure. But like any good show, of course, we need to discuss the kickoff match very quickly. And because, well, there's not too much to discuss really on this one. It is Gallows and Anderson against the Miztourage. Of course, that was Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Easy for me to say. Not really much to say here about this match, really, just apart from Gallows saying nerd quite a bit on a repetitive chant. And of course, these two actually picking up the victory with the Magic Killer. And this match, it didn't go too long, went for 8 minutes and 50 seconds. And the other other part of note really to give about this was that the Revival were backstage and saying this isn't our form of tag team wrestling, that where's the sort of old school style that they're used to. And clearly WWE's tag team division didn't change in any way going into the future, so they ended up in AEW instead as FTR. But to give a star rating for this one, it was 1.75 for Mr. Dave Meltzer. I personally think he's been a bit generous. I don't think there was really too much to talk about this match. I'm going to go with a 1.25 because I just felt it was completely unnecessary. Do you think that this match would be screaming to you to watch on a card at any time?
No, definitely not. I put my hands up. I didn't actually watch it. I didn't realise there was an undercard match, but no, it really doesn't sort of what make me want to watch it. To be honest with you, now giving it a 1.25, I don't think I'm going to go back to watch it either.
I think I'm sparing everybody here. I did this work so nobody else had to. So that's pretty much where I went with this. But one thing I can say is definitely worth a shout is, in my opinion, I think this pay-per-view, I do think that there's some definitely strong points in it. And obviously, as we go into where the show actually kicks off to the main show, we get the introduction, the video package, of course, to hype up the event. Of course, it's all about that destination. WrestleMania at this point was going to be in New Orleans, Louisiana for WrestleMania 34. But of course, first off, it's that spot in the Elimination Chamber, the highlighting of 7 men and the winner facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And of course, they'll hype out also the first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match. And of course, Ronda Rousey signing that Raw contract. So first thing I have to say to you, Aaron, is looking at this video package kick off the show, was you hyped?
Yeah, definitely. I thought it did a good job of obviously selling the lead up to WrestleMania. And it let you know, especially with the men's Elimination Chamber, that each competitor had their own sort of, their reasons for winning, if you know what I mean, like their own desires to get to WrestleMania. Like you had Cena, who didn't even know if he was going to get on the card. Obviously did a great job building up the first women's match, and you had that whole, who's going to be a team, who's not, dynamic going into it, and then obviously Rousey kind of sells itself. So yeah, it definitely got me into it for sure.
Absolutely, and I've got to say, I feel the same. I thought that WWE, they're always very strong on the video packages, and this was no exception here. They let you know what the big points were going to be of this show, and like I say, I mean, they didn't waste any time getting straight into it, because match one of the night was the first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match, of course, and this one here was for the Raw Women's Championship as well. We had the champion Alexa Bliss, of course, against Sasha Banks, against Bayley, Mickie James, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville. Now, of course, you mentioned there about the will they beat a team? Will they not be? Because, of course, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville were part of Absolution at this point with Paige. Of course, Paige being a local Norwich girl as well, so I'm sure that gave a bit of support immediately for you there, Aaron, on that one. And but of course, being a Brit as well, I also had a bit of support for this as well here. But of course, we know Sasha Banks and Bayley are friends as well. But it was that sort of divide and conquer. Rose and Deville kind of thought, as we are the team, we're definitely going to walk away with a victory here. But of course, we know Alexa Bliss and Mickie James had been friends before. I believe it was the Conquistador almost, where Mickie James actually re-debuted in WWE on SmackDown, helping Alexa Bliss back in 2017. Then obviously they had their breakup, obviously, and this was the kind of thing of was Mickie James being manipulated to going back into a team here? But Mickie James, mark her words, she said she was happy to go in for the team and assist Alexa Bliss on the build, but she was there to win that Raw Women's Championship. I really thought this was a very good video package that was put here together once again here. What did you think of it?
Yeah, totally agree. Really enjoyed the video package. It let you know pretty much like what you don't really even need to watch like the previous Raws beforehand to know what the story is going into it. I thought that's what the package did really well. You knew what was going to happen in the match, the story that they were going to tell. There was a lot of intrigue going into it, like you said. Didn't know whether Mickie James and Bliss were gonna team up. Obviously, Sasha Banks and Bayley, whilst they are friends, you know that they're always gonna try and go. They're gonna make sure that they're gonna put themselves ahead of the other. So yeah, I thought it did a great job to build it up.
Absolutely, indeed. And we're just going to get our first comment up of the evening as well. It comes from Martin Carrero here. It says, "What's up, guys? Looks like I made it at this EC pay-per-view. It was so groundbreaking for the women's division." I mean, that's the thing as well here. It's not just a great story that goes into it. It is groundbreaking. It's a first time ever. And let's be fair, it's a surprise, really. It took WWE so long to do this, but such a great opportunity for the ladies involved.
Yeah, 100% agree. Definitely. This was sort of the period of time when they had like first women's rumble, first elimination chamber, first Hell in a Cell, and it was so great to see like finally all these women getting the same treatment as the men. So, and they've been killing it ever since they've done these matches. A lot of them do exceed expectations or meet them. So yeah, it was great stuff.
Absolutely, indeed, there. And as we go, then we're going to try and break this match down, sort of section by section, where we can do. But obviously, the match here starts off with Bayley and Sonya Deville as the first two. So the other four ladies are in the pods. The match sort of begins with that feeling out process, but we get an enjoyable slingshot here from Deville to Bayley. But instead of Bayley going face first into that cage, she actually lands on the cage and climbs up it a bit, which I thought got quite a big good reaction from the crowd. There was a few other counters as well. We do see Deville getting thrown into the steel structure as we get to entrant number 3. But just before we go to entrant number 3, did you enjoy this first 5 minutes with Bayley and Deville? I thought they sort of managed that time pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. I thought they did a great job. As you say, there was a good feeling out process, and I think what the good thing was that they did use the chamber like immediately, because I think some people may have thought, you know, will they have the same level of violence as we've seen in previous sort of editions with the men? But yeah, they did a great job just using the chamber straight off the bat, and there was no filler out or at all. It just went quite quickly. So.
And you know what, I think you make a fantastic point there, because they do actually really utilize that space. They don't worry about what's around. Like you say, this is going to be on the same level as the men, and they waste no time in doing it. But of course, we mentioned the idea of the tag team feeling in this chamber match, and will people be on people's sides? How's it going to be with the numbers advantage? Entrant number 3 coming into the match then is none other than Mandy Rose. So we've got Absolution as 2 of the first 3 members here. So Bayley knows straight off the back here that she's at a 2-on-1 disadvantage here, but she does sort of like take the early advantage with the 2, but then obviously it doesn't kind of work out for very, very long. We'll see a straight right hand from Mandy Rose on the outside, followed by a spear with a land on that sort of steel on the outside. Looked quite brutal. This was sort of then followed with Bayley being continuously thrown into that steel cage. And also after, she was sort of hung over like with her arms in sort of like a chained up position, where she was taking a lot of knees and a lot of strikes as well as we get to entrant number 4. Do you reckon that Absolution did a fantastic job here and really sort of taking Bayley out at this point? Bayley was selling really well for these two, and it looked like she was at a really strong disadvantage.
Yeah, definitely. I thought they did a great job to get the heat on them. Definitely, it really built up to, obviously Sasha Banks was number 4, but it really built up to that moment where someone would come in and be the sort of savior for Bayley. But yeah, as you've said there really well, like, Bayley did a great job of selling and made Absolution look great. So yeah, loved it.
Absolutely, indeed. And you mentioned there Sasha Banks being number 4 there. And what I think was really clever about her being the 4th entrant, obviously we still have the question marks over Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. What's going to be the story with these two in the match? We've effectively got a tag team here, because we know what's going to go on in this match with those set of 4 ladies in the ring here. And did you enjoy the dynamic of the feeling of it being like a tag team match?
Yeah, I did. That's the story that built up beforehand. So it was great to see that play out in the match itself. And as you've said there, the fact that we didn't get Mickie and Alexa, it still builds up that intrigue with the fans to be like, oh, what's going to happen when they enter? It's like, you know what's happening now with the tag team, that when one of them enters, it kind of just throws it all out of the window. So yeah, this was a great sort of part of the story that they were telling.
Absolutely. And at least that first elimination of the night as well there. Of course, we see Mandy Rose end up in the bank statement tapping out. Of course, Sonya Deville looks to try and make the save, but Bayley takes it out of the way as well to make sure that it really is that proper sort of tag team match there. But of course, Mandy Rose making history as the first ever woman to be eliminated from the Elimination Chamber. Also, she'd been the first ever eliminated from a Royal Rumble match as well, in a women's Royal Rumble match. So trivia questions, answers there if you ever get them. What were your thoughts there of the way that this was done to get that first elimination?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought Mandy had a pretty good showing, to be fair. And I think she was in there long enough where it didn't feel like she'd been jobbed out or anything like that. Like, she was part of the story, which was great to see. And I thought it made sense in terms of the fact that Absolution obviously teamed up on Bayley, and then to have Sasha come in and then get their sort of revenge. And you see Absolution get their comeuppance. And now it's Sonya that's going to be in that position where she's handicapped for a little while. So, yeah, really good stuff. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Thought it was absolutely brilliant and loved the way it was done there. And Martin Carrillo's got in with the comments once again. He feels like Absolution were at the peak of the women's division at this point. They could have been one of the best women's factions. And they were really a big deal when they came in.
Yeah, they really were. And they kept it going, didn't they? Obviously, when Paige got injured, they renamed themselves Fire and Desire, and they kept going. And yeah, they definitely had a really good story, Sonya and Mandy. I think it's one that a lot of people don't really talk about now, or they just sort of underestimate, because even when they broke up, I know I'm talking a little later down the line here, but that was great as well. So yeah they were great.
They certainly were. I would agree. And like you say, it's a little bit further down the line, but I really enjoyed their program at SummerSlam 2020. I love the way that it was done and how it was put together. Obviously, Sonya Deville from that point has only just actually come back into a WWE ring. We're talking about, the hair up and square up of Sonya Deville at this point to the GM that we see now. And it's quite a fun dynamic with a lot of the women that are in this match is that a number of different gimmicks. We've got the goddess Alexa Bliss at this point. We've got the hugger that is Bayley at this point as well. I mean, Mandy Rose was the golden goddess, but now is an NXT Women's Champion. It goes to show that, Mickie James, who's been in WWE as a legend at that point, had left the company, obviously with the circumstances that she did, but she's recently come back at the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of things to just tie in with this to actually make this a perfect time to do this review.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I sort of noticed when I thought back to this match. I was like, seeing where all 6 women are now, and they're all recently competed in the WWE ring. So that is really interesting for sure.
Absolutely, indeed. We've got another view here. Thank you very much, and hope you're doing well as well. Thank you for checking out the stream. It's good to have you with us here. So we're diving in. We're about halfway through the Women's Elimination Chamber match as we get into entrant number 5 joining the match. Of course, this is where Mickie James enters the fray here, and I really like the early usage where she uses the cage and an assistant to use a hurricanrana to Deville on the floor. We see Mickie and Bayley climb up the chamber as well, and Mickie actually kicks Bayley off, and she's on top of the pod, and then she jumps to land on Sonya Deville. It's kind of like that Miztourage that Sasha Banks uses, but not really on that sort of high neck of the neck. It's sort of more lower down, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit like a diving Luthez press, I thought, in a way.
Yeah.
She had just done it from the top. But yeah, no, it was great. It was awesome.
It was a great spot. It reminded me actually of her TNA cage matches, actually, when she used to do that there. And it was perfectly used here to get the pinfall. So Sonya Deville, at this point, after that move is hit, she is eliminated from the match as well. So at this point, then, we've got Absolution out of the ring. We're left with Mickie James, Bayley, and Sasha Banks. But you think at that point, okay, right, well, we know where this is going to go, at least the number 6 entrant coming in. Not at all. This is completely different because, obviously we see it after this. Bayley hits a Bayley to belly, on Mickie James not long afterwards, and Mickie James gets pinned. So that really surprised me looking back. Obviously, there's been a few years since I've seen this match. I was shocked that Mickie James has been there such a short time, but she had a great showing the time she was in there. I'd have liked to have seen her stick it out a bit longer.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like because we've talked about how the build was, kind of talked about how the dynamic between Mickie James and Alexa Bliss, and obviously to not see that pay off in the match was a little bit strange. But yeah, as you say, it happened so quickly after that dive from the top that it did take me aback as well, to be honest. But yeah.
It is what it is, but it does lead to a fun little area after this because obviously it comes to the question then of, well, WWE's favourite question really to ask, will they coexist at this point? Because Bayley and Sasha Banks have a question, do we go one-on-one or do we regroup and recharge and wait for the countdown? Because we know that the Raw Women's Champion has had the full advantage of being in that pod. It's almost now the disadvantage because as soon as that number goes down, we see Bayley and Sasha decide, nope, we're going to be on the same page. We're going to go after Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss tries to hold and keep that door closed. That was a fun little part, wasn't it?
That was really fun, definitely. And then, the part after that where she's sort of running around the top of the cage. Yeah, it was awesome to see that. I thought Alexa did a great job. Another little thing about Alexa as well, which I noticed, is like throughout the entire match, they kept panning in on her like facial expressions, and she really showed like the worry of the chamber. Like she sold it really well. So kudos to her, and yeah, she did a great job in that first little bit where they decided to team up on her.
I totally agree. And do you know what? I think that you're bang on the money because when it comes to wrestling, Alexa Bliss does get it. Think what you want about whichever gimmick she's played throughout the time. But like you say, facially, she always knows what to do. She always seems to be able to play her roles with as convincing and 2 feet in as possible. And like you say, in this chain match, like you said, the facials there, they were very much on point. And like you say, when she's running around that cell, because, it's to the point that she runs up and you kind of think, right, okay, how are Bayley and Sasha going to catch her? When Bayley and Sasha sort of go to the walls, 2 of the pods each to make sure that, Bayley, Alexa Bliss got nowhere to go. Alexa has to go down. So she goes back down the cage and all of a sudden you see they meet her at the bottom. She runs straight back up again, straight over to the other side of the pod. And then, of course, at that point, that's when she is cornered because she's stuck on a pod and you've got 2 women either side of it. Sasha Banks manages to get to her and puts in a little bit of a kicking in. And, of course, just when you think at that point it is going to be 2-on-1 to actually take the Raw Women's Champion out, that's where, of course, we see the classic turn and Corey goes going, I knew it all along. Sasha Banks giving the kicking into Bayley. What were your thoughts when you saw that moment?
Yeah, great. I think you kind of saw it coming, didn't you? You knew someone had to give between these two at some point, and I think Banks and Bayley have had that past, haven't they? With Banks always turning on Bayley, and Bayley's just a bit too naive. I think they did sort of tell that story. I remember the commentators saying at one point that every time, Bayley always gets caught out by Sasha. So yeah, that was awesome. Added another little wrinkle to the story.
Absolutely, indeed. And of course, it actually did play to that next following elimination, because it looked like that Bayley actually was going to get the better of Sasha Banks during that match, doing the Bayley to belly off the second rope. We thought, right, okay, boom, big time move here. But of course, Alexa Bliss is still lurking around. You can't forget her in this match. Sort of like an Oklahoma style roll up that was done there to get the 1, 2, 3. And of course, Bayley is out of this match, and we're left then with Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks. The only thing I would say is a closing argument there before we go to the final two. We never got Sasha Banks versus Bayley at WrestleMania 34, and it felt that we were building towards that. Was that a bit of a disappointment that it didn't really continue that story into WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of the similar thing with Mickie and Alexa. Like, you never really see the payoff, which is a bit of a shame. But I think at that point, Alexa was sort of, she was seen as one of the top women in the division, and I think it was a case of WWE just not wanting her to go into Mania without the title at the time, which it is a shame. But we still got a pretty good sort of finale there with Sasha and Alexa, and I do really like. Although it was sort of cheap how Bayley got eliminated, I thought it made a lot of sense in terms of like Alexa's character. Yeah. Like, she's that sort of ultimate opportunist in a way that takes advantage of the situation. So she's turned sort of a negative into a positive, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it perfectly fits that characteristic. What Bliss is. Bliss isn't someone there that's going to do your 5-star classic. She's there to fill in the dirty work. She's there to sort of get the kicking, get the punching, get the DDT in, get the roll up when it's necessary. It's perfect, Alexa Bliss. And like you say, it's great to get that elimination on Bayley as we get then towards the final two. And well, I mean, there was a bit of a moment in this final two where I will have a bit of a nitpick if you don't mind, because I've really enjoyed this match. But Bliss goes for a twisted Bliss off the top, and that first time perfectly fine. Sasha gets the knees up, the battle continues, but they end up on that steel on the outside, and Bliss goes for it again from the top of the pod. She seems to land it, but at the same time Sasha seems to turn it into a bank statement. It almost feels completely no-sold. Was that a little bit of a nitpick for you as well?
Big nitpick for sure. I guess, I thought when she put in the bank statement, I was like, wait, did she count? I don't know, did she catch her? And then looking back on it, I was like, well, no, like it was a proper twisted Bliss. And like for that instant, she did sell it like she took it. But yeah, I don't know what happened.
it was proper strange. But
it was.
It's hard to work out like what was really going on there. And of course, then it comes to the point where we're reminded by the officials that, oh, by the way, no falls can take place on the steel on the outside. So the fact is, if Alexa Bliss was to give up there, it's not going to count. So you realize that Sasha Banks realizes this as well, rolls that bank statement into the ring. But at this point, Alexa Bliss is able to get out of it as well there. We see then we get to the corner. I mean, to be fair, we see Alexa Bliss sort of out of it for the moment. Sasha Banks is climbing up for the turnbuckle, attempts to go to the top of the pod. As she's going to go towards the top of the pod, Bliss kind of pushes Banks. She goes face first straight into the glass of the pod, and then her feet are hanging on the top rope as she's then driven in for a DDT. And of course, Alexa Bliss picks up the victory. But I thought that was a very clever way for it to finish, because like you say, it's typical Alexa Bliss and her characteristics, how she can counter and find a way, hit a finishing move, make it look devastating. And Sasha Banks, even though she's that sort of the one that I suppose a lot of people would like to have seen win this match, she sort of took a really good sort of devastating way to lose and bow out.
Yeah, definitely. She didn't look weak with that finish at all, I don't think. And as you said, it is sort of built onto what Alexa had already done with sort of being an opportunist, taking advantage of Bayley there. She took advantage of the situation there as well to win. I always thought that she outsmarted her opponents, which was definitely a clever way of doing it. So yeah, it was a good finish.
Absolutely, indeed. There, and obviously we know at this point then that means Alexa Bliss would be the Raw Women's Champion going in to WrestleMania 34. And we got an interview as well afterwards of Alexa Bliss, and of course the feeling, especially when we have these first time moments in WWE, they like to get the winner's feelings on it. And of course, Alexa Bliss saying, "This victory means everything to me." We get tears from Alexa Bliss. We get chants like of "You deserve it." Bliss goes and say this is about every little girl who ever dreamed big. This proves that you can be whatever you want to be. Dare to dream and dream big. But looking at everyone here, the reality is that none of you will accomplish any of your dreams. No one is better than me. The odds were stacked against me, and I still won, even though none of you believed in me. There's only one true goddess in WWE. Now, I'm pretty sure I didn't give that as good a justice as what she did, because the way she twisted it and turned it, she was full on pure babyface, as babyface can be. The fans actually bought into it for a bit and eating it up.
Yeah.
And the second she turned, God bless the crowd as well, because they sort of like, they went, yeah, this is the Bliss we know. And they kind of almost, they loved it, even though they wanted to boo the idea that she was saying that they'd never get where she is. So I thought that was a fantastic little bit just at the end of the match here.
Yeah, definitely. I was a little confused at first, and I was like, nah, something's not right here. Like, you was waiting for the coin to drop, and then it was absolutely brilliant. Fit her character to a T. Bliss is so great at that. I do think, I'm not sure about sort of having interviews after the chamber, because it's like, you've just been through an elimination chamber. You should probably sell it a little bit more. But no, I can't sort of make it. I thought she did a great job with the promo. So yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, for those that are Alexa Bliss fans, you will get treated to a little bit more Alexa Bliss during this stream, because it's not her done for the whole entire evening. But we'll just quickly go into a little bit of detail then for those that are just wondering. Of course, the level of time of this match, of course, was just under 30 minutes. It was 29 minutes and 35 seconds. I will give you Dave Meltzer's rating just before I come to yours, Aaron. Big Dave, he gave this a 3.25 star rating. I wondered what you would give this match.
I'd be a lot more generous. I thought it was brilliant. I'd give it 4.25. I just thought it was booked really well. I really liked the order of the entrances and the eliminations. I thought they really helped tell the story. As we've already mentioned throughout the breakdown, like, there were some like different stories told throughout the match. Really well paced. It was really exciting. They used the chamber well, which is always great in it when you do see a chamber match that they actually use the structure. So yeah, I'd give it 4.25 personally.
Do you know what? Not to be a copycat, but I agree with you. I think, well, Dave, what was wrong? What was you upset about? This is a great told story. The women did very well in the match as well with the stuff they got to do. They did death-defying stunts from start to finish. That chamber got used a hell of a lot during this match as well. I don't know what Dave's issue is. In fact, Dave, if you're watching this, I don't agree with you. We're giving it 4.25 here on SCW, and Aaron's doing the same. And he's an analytical assassin. He knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what, just before we move on then and go to elsewhere in the pay-per-view, I think it's just a little bit of good opportunity as well to talk about Alexa Bliss, because obviously that was at the height of her goddess character. She's in a moment right now on Raw where she's kind of in this therapy sort of session. We've had the Lily doll, we've had this sort of Bray Wyatt Fiend style Alexa Bliss for the last sort of 18 months to nearly 2 years. Do you want to see a transition back into the goddess, or do you want to? Where do you want to see it go? Because I miss this Alexa Bliss. I felt that this was the star power Alexa Bliss that we knew and loved.
Yeah, I didn't know how much I missed Goddess Alexa Bliss until I watched this, and I was like, what is she doing right now? Like, it's so different. And as you said, when she was the goddess, I feel like, she was one of the top women. She was up there with like Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, along with one of the four horsewomen. But these days, she just dropped so far down the pecking order, which is a massive shame, because she's great in the ring. She's great on promos, probably one of the best promos in the women's division. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see her go back for sure.
Absolutely. Even if it's something in between, some sort of like, I don't know, a blend between the two, but without the Lily doll, and, maybe not as much as the hocus pocus sort of stuff. And we will be, if you like your hocus pocus sort of supernatural stuff in WWE, don't worry, we've got one of those matches coming up for you later on as well. Martin Carrillo says that Dave Meltzer just underrates gems like this Elimination Chamber match. So I think Martin agrees with us as well. Now, Martin, give us your star rating as well. We'll give it a shout out of what you think of it also. But I mean, obviously, we'll in the meantime be talking about what we think for the next match then, which of course, it's the Raw Tag Team Championships that's going to be coming up for us next now. And we've got the bar. Who remembers the bar of Sheamus and Cesaro going to be taking on Titus Worldwide with Dana Brooke, of course, doing the statistics, if you remember. Of course, not only was she once currently is a 24/7 champion, she was also an analyst for the Titus Worldwide brand. And I did notice as well in commentary, they had said that Titus Worldwide had got this match because they got 3 separate victories over the bar, which really surprised me. So Raw's booking wasn't much better then.
No, that's exactly what I thought when I heard that. I was like, well, nothing's changed then, has it? If rematches every week, it's absolutely ridiculous. I do not get why the WWE thinks that the only way you can have a number one contender is by defeating the champions. That just does not make sense to me because you've already seen them lose. There's no intrigue, is there?
No. I suppose, can you see them do it with the titles on the line? But like 99 times out of 100, if they win before the pay-per-view over the champion, they're going to lose when it comes to the pay-per-view. Yeah. It's just to get you meant to be interested in the pay-per-view. And oh, yeah, they didn't do it when it got to actually where it mattered. It's like, it's constantly where it happens. But did it matter here? That's the big question. Well, we're not going to be taking as long to dive into this one as we did the last match because, yes, this match did start with a brawl to kick things up, but it did quickly form into a standard tag team match. As we got towards the end there, we got the hot tag to Titus O'Neil. He hits his Clash of the Titans to Sheamus for a near fall. Apollo gets himself back into the match and we exchange some near falls with Sheamus. At this point, Cesaro takes out Titus on the floor and the Bar hit their tag team finish, almost like the white noise with Cesaro coming off with like an uppercut at the same time. And we see them get the 1, 2, 3. So yeah, not as much to discuss this. This was a lot shorter to talk about than that Women's Elimination Chamber match. But for me, this was just standard. This could have been on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That is the word to use for this. Standard tag team match, standard story with like the Bar working the heat and keeping Cruz isolated. Titus O'Neil comes in with the hot tag and they do their best, but unfortunately it doesn't work out. It was fine. The rest of them was okay. Cruz had some nice aerial offense in there as well, but just box standard.
Sadly, that's pretty much what it is, bog standard there. There's not really much to shout about. And Big Dave gave this a 2.25 rating star. And just to give you the time of the match as well, this went for 10 minutes and 5 seconds. And I can say that there probably was at least 3 or 4 minutes too long. What was your star rating for this one?
Initially I gave it a 3, but maybe 2.75. I think it got good towards the end. I think the crowd did get into it towards the end. So somewhere in between there, I think.
Okay, I think that's fair. I actually am going to actually go lower than Dave on this one. Like you say, it got better towards the end, but I just found myself not that invested in the match. And I think when you go back to these retros, I want to feel something when I go into when we actually had that great Elimination Chamber match. This reminds me of a match here, like you say, could have been on Raw, and why these brand splits didn't last like this. We didn't have Raw only pay-per-views and SmackDown, but they're great really because they can build new stars, but also you get stuff that you're just not interested in paying your money and staying up. Like for us UK folk that will stay up late to watch these shows, you're not needing to want to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning to watch Titus Worldwide against the Bar. And that's not to be a dig really at all, because there's great talented performers, but it's just like it stands out to me. So I'm going to give it a 2 for me. I thought it was okay, but okay at best. But I mean, for me, the most exciting part about this was to see the Bar as a tag team. What a great tag team they were. Would you like to see Cesaro sort of get himself back into this team with the Bar at some point?
Yeah, I think he needs to. Even if you recreate the Bar and you have Ridge Holland in it as well. Like, why not put Cesaro in there? I mean, what else have you got planned for him? So, yeah, something along those lines. Because I feel like that was when, I know they were in a tag team and you do still want to see Cesaro move up the card, but I thought they were perfect. At the time, they were up there with like the Usos and everything. On banger matches. Obviously, this one was standard, but they always had great matches. So yeah, I'd love to see Cesaro and Sheamus reunite at some point.
Absolutely indeed. I'd like to. I mean, Apollo Crews has moved on to a greater gimmick as well from this point, and obviously we don't see as much of him on Monday Night Raw. Apparently, he's one of the backups for the Royal Rumble match this past Sunday. I'd like to see him get more of a run on Raw.
Criminally underrated, man. Criminally underrated. He's so good. Like when he started out that gimmick on SmackDown, I really thought they were going to build him up into something big to be probably like the second heel under Roman Reigns, especially when you saw them talking. So to see him now, I do not understand why they're not putting him on TV. He did a great job. So yeah, I can't understand that one whatsoever.
No, neither can I, sadly, there. But we've got Martin Carrillo's thoughts here just on this match, and we'll go back to his rating for the women's match as well at the end of this discussion. But he says, really average match from the Bar, and the Bar went on to demise with Nicholas winning one of those titles at WrestleMania 34, which, of course, that's another criminally misuse of the Raw Tag Team division. It shows you everything. When you've got the likes of the Revival, Gallows and Anderson as well, and they just didn't make anything of this. It really was a shame. But is there something you'd like to see here in 2022, the Bar versus the Street Profits?
Yeah, definitely. That would be a great match, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'd love to see that one. The Bar, even if Gable and Notice stay together, that would be a great match as well with the Bar. That's what I mean. Like, I know they have got a few tag teams about, but they could make it. They could give that so much more credibility by just adding the Bar to it, because they hold that much credibility. Like, they are even to this day, they're not together, and they're still like one of the biggest tag teams, I'd say, of the last decade in the WWE. So
yeah. I totally agree. And just say, you mentioned about Cesaro, Ridge Holland, and Sheamus. Add Pete Dunne and make that a quartet. I know we're talking potentially could be like a League of Nations 2.0 if they're not booked correctly. But at the same time, I think that as a quartet would be really strong and really fun to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like the problem with the League of Nations is, like, I don't know, like there was like a disconnect there. Like, they weren't all the same characters in a way. Like Rusev and Wade Barrett, they're just not the same. But when you look at Sheamus, Cesaro, Pete Dunne, and Ridge Holland, they're all kind of under the same mold. Like these European hard hitting, that's it, just hard men.
Yeah. They don't mess with these lot. And the thing is, like you say, you've got chemistry already there, or a lot of them have ties previously. To put them in as a unit, I think could be quite fun to watch. But hey, that's our opinion. And hey, we said if Dave Meltzer was watching, we said about our star ratings. Vince, Nick Khan, if you're watching, we've got something for your four lads there. Make him to one super stable. Just a comment from Martin Carrillo where he said he honestly loved the interaction between Apollo and Paul Heyman's talking smack. Heyman did great for the career of Apollo Crews.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Just that one little segment, and you became so much more aware of him, so much more intrigued to see what had happened, and they just didn't do anything, which is a massive shame.
Absolutely. I have to agree with that entirely. We'll give Martin's rating as well for the women's match also before we go to the men's match. He says here 4.5 just because the women had a good purpose behind it. So there you go. That's his rating for that. And I mean, anyone feel free to put your ratings in throughout the entire time. We're happy to discuss them. But of course, we'll go to the next match with the card, which is Asuka versus Nia Jax. Now, of course, really fun video package I have to talk about before we go into this, because we see Nia Jax actually stomp on one of Asuka's face masks, and then we get this video package that says October 7th 2015, which at that point was 873 days later, 246 wins, 0 losses, the 7th superstar to be the sole survivor at Survivor Series, and the first superstar as a women's Royal Rumble winner. And that match also had 15 former women's champions in it also. But of course, in the actual flip side of that video package, Nia Jax said it's only a matter of time. And the number that may only matter is the number 1. Nia Jax doesn't fear her. If Nia wins, then that Mania will become a triple threat match. So, and of course, that was if Asuka was to choose Alexa Bliss, because I believe at this point Asuka hadn't chosen who she was going against at WrestleMania 34. But just so quickly before we go into the match, that video package to hype up, that's how you hype up a new star. Would I be not right in saying that we don't see enough of that today?
No, you really don't. Totally agree with you. It did a fantastic job. Just by saying like how first Royal Rumble winner, like 7th sole survivor in Survivor Series, like that's awesome. And seeing what she did in NXT and building all of that, the fact, because that's the thing these days, they never really reference what happened in NXT with some women, like with Rhea Ripley, they don't really talk about her time in NXT, but with Asuka, it was like, oh, she's been undefeated for like 2 years. They did a great job, and I thought they did a great job as well of selling like how much of a threat Nia Jax was to Asuka's reign. So did a great job.
Absolutely. No, I thought they did a great job of it also. And as we go into the match as well, then with these two, I can tell you what, there was a very good story for me throughout the height of this match. It felt legitimate threat to Asuka's streak after so long and so close to WrestleMania as well. And I had quite an advantage at the early part of this match, but we did get a bit of a comeback from Asuka, when we got a bit of a faster pace. But we see Nia attempt a Samoan drop from the second rope as we go towards the end of the match. But Asuka counters, looks to try and turn it into a powerbomb. She's not to from the ground, and then Nia actually misses a banzai drop, a classic Yokozuna move, which of course just makes me warm my heart. I was always a big fan of Yoko back in the day. Nia then sort of runs into the ring post as well, trying to go after Asuka, and Asuka then manages to get herself into an arm bar onto Nia Jax. Nia Jax powers out of this using Asuka's hair, getting up and throwing her back first into the turnbuckle. That looked a bit nasty. Nia then goes for a power bomb, and we see Asuka reverse it using sort of a scissors way to then roll up her legs and roll up Nia Jax for the 3 count. After this match, also Nia Jax actually attacks Asuka and actually puts her through the barricade at ringside. So let's talk about the match first before the after match beatdown. I thought this was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. Great match. I think, you know, when you see Nia Jax is going to have a singles match, you're like, oh, flip a coin and then, you know, that'll work out what it is. So you're not sure whether you're going to get a good or a bad match. But no, she did a great job here. I thought Asuka was a great foil for her. As you said, they told a really clever story, sort of speed versus strength. But I liked how you could tell that Asuka was trying to win like by submission. She would constantly try and counter and go for different submissions, which was great to see. Another thing as well that I thought was really cool, I think Nia Jax went for a running senton. She missed Asuka, but she did get her legs, which I don't think was supposed to happen. But Asuka sold the legs like really well for like the rest of the match. So that was great to see. Yeah, it was awesome. You know, the crowd were into it. The pacing was great as well. So yeah, I thought they did a good job. The women absolutely killing it on this show.
Absolutely. The leg split was probably a botch. That's probably what happened there. Was
Yeah.
But but no, in serious note, like you say, I noticed that detail as well, because Asuka, you could tell she wasn't hurt, but she was selling it. Like you say, it's sort of on the fly storytelling, and it was a great part of the match here, and it was a great story. It was great execution. I would even go out and say, I don't know if I've seen a better Nia Jax match. I think this might be the best one I've seen her take part in.
Yeah. I wondered that myself. I was like, I don't know if there's a better Nia Jax match. So there you go. That's just Asuka, isn't it? It's the power of Asuka. That's what she brings to the table.
Certainly. I think the only one that could probably match it, but I'd have to go back and watch it, would be the WrestleMania 34, where she actually wins the title from Alexa Bliss, because, well, that's what goes on to happen. But, of course, we don't know at this point. And I did promise you a bit more Alexa Bliss. Of course, she was backstage watching the match entirely. Looked a bit nervous, the idea when it could be a triple threat match, but I could tell you what, once Asuka picked up the victory and she's seen that Nia had actually put her through the barricade after the match, we see Bliss is happy, and she said that, you know, no one is ready for Alexa. So it looked like Alexa was ready if Asuka was going to come for her. What did you think of the after-match beatdown? I thought it was really well done. It seemed to be giving Nia Jax that credibility, because we knew we were going to have her in a championship match at WrestleMania still.
Yeah, it does make sense, because it sort of puts the heat back on Nia. Like, I don't think she looked weak in any case, to be honest, because Asuka won quite. There was a clever way for her to win, but yeah, it was just a way for her to get the heat back. And having Alexa, it kind of pretty much said you kind of knew what the match was then going to be at WrestleMania once you Alexa Bliss it afterwards. So yeah, I thought that was really great as well.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, we'll go into the details for everybody once again. Let's give you a little time. This match here was only 8 minutes and 15 seconds. And I tell you what, it didn't need to be longer. I think it did the job perfectly for the time it was on. Dave Meltzer, I think, is a bit harsh here again. Seems to be a big fan of the Raw Tag Team title match, but he gives this the same rating of 2.25. I think this has got to at least be a 3.
Yeah, definitely. I'd go 3.25, I think. Yeah, I thought it was maybe even a 3.5, to be honest, if I went back. But yeah, I thought they did a great job in sort of all the areas, to be honest. Yeah, it was a really fun match.
Absolutely. I think they utilised that time well between them also. So, no, definitely enjoyed that indeed there. But we'll move on then. And obviously, Charlie Caruso also speaks to Roman Reigns. Just before she does, Asuka is actually helped out by referees after that. So she gets the win, but is helped out. Do you reckon that harmed Asuka at all? But she's still undefeated, so shouldn't be a problem, should it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, to be honest. I think, if anything, it makes Nia Jax look good. The fact that sort of her beatdown did that to Asuka, but no, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, she didn't lose the match, did she? So
no, I agree. Probably was the following months that probably armed Asuka's booking, really, rather than that moment. But Charlie Caruso interviewing Roman Reigns there. Roman says it's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. He's going to go to win the Elimination Chamber and go on to WrestleMania to win the Universal Championship from Brock Lesnar. So, I mean, obviously, taking Heyman's line there, I thought that was just a nice little touch of what was worth mentioning, because now we know all those years later that actually Roman has been aligned with Paul Heyman. So I thought it was a fun little note.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite ironic in that case. But still, like, seeing this promo from Roman, it's such a far cry from what he's like now. Like the delivery is just totally different. Because it did sound a little awkward, I thought, compared to what he's like now. But no, it did the job at the end of the day. So.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, we're going to go on then to match 4, and we've got another video package to talk about. And I said there'd be something weird and wonderful during this video. It is not just Matt Hardy. It says Matt Hardy on the screen, but I should have wrote Woken Matt Hardy versus Bray Wyatt, because we had a video package here of Matt Hardy being taken too far after a beatdown, losing to Bray, and we start seeing him screaming, delete, delete. And of course, he becomes Woken Matt Hardy with the giddy laughs and the ring attire that he would wear. Bray claims, though, that he's a god that cannot die. Matt claims, that he's going to make Bray obsolete and he will be deleted. Now, as a video package, I thought it was kind of selling up what this was, really. Was you invested waiting to see this match?
No, not really. I don't think Matt and Bray have ever been considered like workhorses or technical wizards or anything like that. So not really. But, I think at the time I was really happy to see Woken Matt Hardy. But as well at this time, I remember just watching Bray Wyatt's promos, and every time I'm just like, what are you talking about? I do not understand what you're trying to say here. It was just a load of nonsense, to be honest. And I kind of think Woken Matt Hardy got the same treatment after a while. So, they did try with this build up in a way. Like they tried to sell it, but it just came off. Yeah, I don't know, just a little confusing, to be honest.
I would have to agree there. We'll talk about the characters just a little bit just before we go into the match itself. We'll start with Woken Matt Hardy, because obviously it was the broken gimmick that really got over in TNA, where the deletion matches. And I know that Matt and Bray eventually would go on to have an ultimate deletion match that would close Raw. And Vince McMahon reportedly just didn't get it, even though fans seemed to be fairly into when that was done. But do you feel that this gimmick, kind of knowing that it was working really well in Impact, then it kind of had that little stint in Ring of Honor just before re-signing with WWE? Matt actually re-debuted in WWE at WrestleMania 33 with that hair to go on to just be the Hardy Boys. Do you think that sort of near year as being the Hardy Boys, kind of when we got this back here, it kind of felt, well, we know WWE doesn't really want it, so we don't really trust that they're going to book it well and right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think at the end of the day, if they wanted to have a form of Woken Matt Hardy, why not do it straight away? Like, that would have been the reason why you brought him in. But I think they just brought him in for a nostalgia act, to be honest. I think they hit a point where they're like, we're not really sure what to do with him. Was Jeff Hardy injured at this point, wasn't he?
He may have been. Or I know that he was on the opposite brand of SmackDown, but then he may have been at this point injured. So I'm not actually sure the whereabouts of Jeff Hardy. I could actually give that a quick Google search and find out for everybody. But I mean, we'll speak about Bray Wyatt as well. Actually, one more question I've got about Matt before we move on. Obviously, we just mentioned that other company for a minute, AEW. Obviously, he kind of started with that gimmick over there as well. It didn't seem to connect there either. Do you think that was due to a lack of fans due to the pandemic, or do you think that it's just simply this character it had a shelf life and it just doesn't connect now at this point? If say Matt was to try and bring it back again now, do you reckon it would connect or not?
I do. I actually think it would. Not in a wrestling capacity. I think it would have to be in sort of like the way he did his promos and the little vignettes and all that. So, yeah, I do think having no fans harmed it. I think when he came in, I think there was a lot of fanfare online. So yeah, I think it would work, and I think it would have paid off if there were fans there, but yeah, it just didn't work out. To be honest, I think anything that Matt Hardy does would be better than what he's doing now, but we won't get to that.
Well, I think it will change at some point, but obviously probably not the show all the time to be talking about AEW. But we will just quickly talk about the Eater of Worlds then, Bray Wyatt. What a character that could have been, and unfortunately what ended up not being. And obviously this was probably one of the real lower points of Bray Wyatt. He'd come off of that rivalry with Finn Balor, where he was going to be doing the Sister Abigail stuff. Of course, after this, he ends up in the Lake of Reincarnation, obviously. And I think these two ended up being a tag team going into the summer when they do their first show in Saudi Arabia. And I mean, what could have been with Bray? But thinking about this, a year earlier at the Elimination Chamber 2017, he wins the WWE Championship. How the mighty can fall sometimes.
Yeah, I think when you say what could he have been, I never want to say the next Undertaker, but that next kind of character, like that level of guy. I honestly think that's what they had in Bray Wyatt to begin with. But then they started adding all this, like, he had like magic tricks and stuff. He was telling off. But he was never that. He was sort of like this cult leader. That's what he was. But yeah, from when he started out to this point, it was just a massive nosedive, to be honest. And I think this was, the tail end of his, where people just, the interest in him, to be honest, I think it really just sort of waned at this point, which is a shame. Fair play to the guy, because he constantly sort of reinvented himself, like he brought back the Fiend and stuff like that. But I just don't think Vince and the WWE really ever saw much in him. I don't think they ever got Bray.
No.
Which is a shame, because the fans really did. We're always into Bray Wyatt, but it's just how it goes sometimes, isn't it, with these guys?
Absolutely. Probably the most misused wrestler in all of WWE history, whether it was the Eater of Worlds, whether it was the Fiend, whatever the character. And it's just one of those. But I'm just looking up on Google there. It looks like Jeff Hardy definitely picked up an injury in 2018, but it's referenced to Hell in a Cell. But there is actually where Jeff Hardy got injured and had to relinquish the SmackDown Tag Team Championships in 2017. So there is a potential that Jeff Hardy was injured during this period. And maybe when he returned to SmackDown, because I know he went on to have a mid-card championship feud with Jinder Mahal. So there is a possibility that Jeff Hardy was injured at this point. Should anyone actually know differently, then please correct me. But that's what I could find on a quick Google search, and also trying to listen to our good Aaron at the same time. But we'll go into the match itself. As I say, weird and wonderful as it was. We see Matt come down to the ring, and then obviously we see Matt vanish on Bray's arrival. Bray goes looking for Matt Hardy, and Matt Hardy sort of returns, jumping off the steps to sort of take a quick advantage here. It's sort of that battle of the mind games. Obviously, we get to see the woken brilliance of Matt Hardy, where we see him congratulate Bray Wyatt with the clap and the wonderful, wonderful, and then we see him calling for him to be deleted as well. But Bray does get back into it with sort of cross-body collision. It's obviously it feels like a car collision with them when he does that. But one of the real brutal spots of this match, I thought, as well, was Bray attempting a Uranagi on the outside into the steel steps, but it was countered, but instead he hits a hard clothesline, which really seemed to knock Matt to the floor. But as we get towards the finish of the match, Bray does attempt his Eater of Worlds, the Sister Abigail finisher, but then Matt counters it into the twist of fate for the victory. So, we talk about being criminally misused. I mean, Bray Wyatt here in a match against Matt Hardy, who's obviously been treated as a mid-carder to lower card guy. Bray can't even get the victory here. But good, I suppose, if you've got a new character in the Woken at this point, even though we know the shelf life didn't last so long, Matt Hardy picking up the victory here.
Yeah, I thought the match was okay. The biggest takeaway from this match was the return of the blooming beach ball. It just completely ruined this match. The fans were just not into it whatsoever. They were chanting for the beach ball. They were chanting for something else that just had nothing to do with the match. I think they got into it maybe in like the last minute or two, but I did feel quite bad for Matt and Bray, because no one was into it. And at the end of the day, they didn't really do much to change their minds. Like the pace was quite slow. The action was like plodding. And as you say, they tried to tell a pretty good story with the mind games, but I don't know. I don't think there was enough to sort of really get me into the match. So I wasn't a massive fan. And I do think another thing as well is I thought the announcing was horrible in this, to be honest. Like when we were talking about the announcers earlier, I think they did such a bad job here, because I think they tried to cover up the crowd noise, and they tried to play it off as like, oh, look, they're going against Bray or something like that. And so like they're just not paying attention.
Yeah.
And I think another thing, like you can tell that they just really do not get Matt and Bray's characters. Like everything they're saying about these guys just comes off as a jibe. It's like, they're idiots. They're delusional. They're just crazy. And I don't know, like, you're not really selling it to us. You're not really bigging up these characters to us. So, it didn't really come off for me very well.
No, I have to agree. Michael Cole was like the mouthpiece of this, almost like it's like Vince McMahon's words of, I don't get this.
Yeah.
What do you
exactly.
like out of this? We see Corey Graves when he sort of says, like, where's the woken brilliance? Why don't you get it kind of thing? But I feel there's a hint of sarcasm when he's saying it as well, as like, well, surely you get it. We don't, but you do. You know what I mean? It's kind of that kind of feeling. And the one bit as well, I will say, and I think this was the match here where they asked Jonathan Coachman if he was a journalist, and his answer was no. And they had to say to him, I think you want to say yes. And he goes, yes, I am. Ask away. But it's just like, the commentary wasn't on its strongest point during this match. No. So I have to say that across a lot of the boards, and I think the other chant you were referring to was Rusev Day that was being chanted during the middle of this match as well.
Yeah.
So, it just, unfortunately, this this just didn't work all around. And yeah, you have got to feel sorry for the performers that were involved in this. But to give you the time length of the match, this actually went for 9 minutes and 55 seconds. Which actually surprised me thinking about that. And Dave Meltzer gives this a 2-star rating. And actually, I do agree with Dave on this one, giving it a 2.
Yeah, totally agree. I'd give it a 2-star as well. Like it wasn't like offensive or anything like that. Like the guys did their job, tried to tell a story, but yeah, it just didn't come off well, to be honest.
No, absolutely not. But it is what it is, and they're both onto pastures new now. So yeah, I guess we don't necessarily have to concentrate on the rest of the WWE time. But what we can concentrate on, which is very interesting, because how sometimes timing can be a beautiful thing. Ronda Rousey signs her contract with WWE at the Elimination Chamber 2018. Of course, she debuted at the Royal Rumble that year, of course, coming out after the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match, pointing at that WrestleMania time while we had Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, and Asuka all in the ring. Of course, we mentioned Alexa Bliss being the Raw Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair being the SmackDown Women's Champion, Asuka being the first ever Royal Rumble winner. And of course, on the build here, we see like Ronda Rousey from her world of UFC, how excited they are to have her in WWE. And of course, then we get Kurt Angle, first one coming out to the ring. We have Triple H and Stephanie, and then they make their announcement of Ronda Rousey. Now, before we go into detail of what happens during this, obviously, again, this is arguably saying a segment that you could say could have been used for Monday Night Raw, but I think how they do this, I think it is kind of still pay-per-view worthy. But first off, Ronda Rousey, a big deal. How did you feel looking back then when she'd signed with WWE?
I think I was quite excited, to be honest, because I think I've been building for a long time. People knew how much a fan of wrestling Ronda Rousey was. We know what she could do in the UFC. And as we've seen before with guys like Ken Shamrock, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle as well, that guys can really transition into wrestling. So I think there was that intrigue surrounding Rousey. What she would be like. Would she pick it up as fast as these guys? And after seeing her get physical, I think it was WrestleMania 31 with Triple H and Steph, that only added to the intrigue. So, yeah, I was quite excited to see what she could do in the company, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I felt the same, really. I think my only worry at the time was that literally she was just going to dominate everyone else and was going to be the champion for a long time, which did actually kind of happen. But at the same time, I think they actually did it quite well when I actually thought they booked her quite well. And she showed that she could do this. She was very good from the start. But we go into the program itself then, and because we're going to talk about Ronda Rousey now very shortly as well. But we'll get into the segment first. And Ronda Rousey said that she wanted no perks. She was just pleased for the opportunity. Triple H was kind of surprised by this, but said, we'll sign that contract, gives her not only an appearance at WrestleMania, which was the only thing she asked for, but she gets a match at WrestleMania, but not a championship match, though. He sort of made very, very clear of that. Now, as the contract's going to be signed, Stephanie sort of with her, we see Kurt Angle over there shaking his head, Triple H going over him, and Kurt gets vocal eventually. He says, he said that Triple H and Stephanie, they're trying to manipulate her, 3 years in the making, and now we have the bitch. It's sort of, especially after that WrestleMania 31 incident, which of course, Kurt Angle just, he didn't hold back, did he? I thought it was a really fun moment.
Yeah, I really liked that bit. That was great. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I love the next bit as well, where Triple H kind of says, look, we're going to get cut out of here. He's got the flu. He's better to be in hospital. It seems like he's not quite right there, so we're getting back then. And Steph goes, yeah, you know how bad the flu is right now, the flu season? I thought myself, you didn't know how bad it was a couple of years later, love. Don't start by saying 2018's flu season. But but still, obviously.
That's exactly what I thought.
But still, we see Triple H trying to get Kurt Angle out of there anyway. And Kurt seems to sort of turn back and get one more last jab on the mic before he seems to really hit the nail on the head there to make Ronda concentrate. Was Stephanie, didn't you have that other thing to say with actually saying that now she's actually a beaten up version of herself and that even Steph can take her? At that point, we see Ronda stare down Stephanie McMahon to the point that Triple H is worried. Triple H goes in. We see the square off between them two. And Ronda then actually does a belly-to-belly and puts Triple H through the table to a massive eruption. This seemed like this was the perfect way to bring Rousey in. It was booked to perfection. And also, it did really well for taking what happened at WrestleMania 31, bringing it to the now, realizing you're not going to get the Rock at WrestleMania, but using Kurt Angle to be Ronda's partner instead. And also, the comparison made earlier in this interview was that they explained Ronda Rousey is the most exciting signee coming to WWE since Kurt Angle. So a lot of things tied up really, really well here into making the storyline narrative. And I thought this was really, really done well.
Yeah, totally agree. They did a great, as you've said, they did a great job of tying in their past interactions, and it really did its job of building up to WrestleMania. Like after the segment, you knew what was going to happen, that tag team match was probably going to get booked. I thought it was a little awkward to begin with. Like Ronda was quite quiet on the mic. I can't blame her because she was probably quite nervous, and I think Kurt fluffed his lines a little bit as well. So I
Yes.
do think it could have maybe been shortened a bit, but when Kurt hit that line, that's when the segment really picked up. Obviously, great to see Triple H getting put through the table, and I thought it was really clever as well. After Steph slapped Ronda, that Ronda didn't do anything to her because it builds up that moment to WrestleMania where you see Stephanie finally get her comeuppance. So they did that. They did that really well. I thought might have been even more interesting to see Rousey like smile maybe like
Yeah.
after the slap, and you sort of see her hair covering her face, if you see a smile on her face, being like, what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
But no, you've said everything perfectly there, mate. Like it was a terrific job that they did of building up to that match, and couldn't think of a better way to bring in Rousey. Probably one of the best contract signings they've ever done, to be honest with you.
Have to be, yeah. I have to agree with that, and also really like the comment you make there about the slap there and what they could have done to do with that as well with Stephanie and Ronda. I really like that analogy you made there. But yeah, I have to agree with contract signings. Usually we can see them so often. You roll your eyes on weekly TV. Oh, I've got another one of these, but this one was really done well. So yeah, even though it's sort of a segment you think could belong on Raw, I think you go out your way and say if you're on the pay per view watching it, this is something you should definitely watch. But before we move on. I would be criminal not to talk about Ronda Rousey now. Obviously, she's come back in now. She returned at the Royal Rumble. I think she looked good at the Rumble. I think she did a solid enough job there. She won the match there. And then we saw on Raw this past week that she said a few words, obviously making her return. The promo wasn't the strongest, I have to be honest here. But I found it hard to understand what she was saying at times, actually, on the mic. It felt she was very disinterested and almost to a point made me feel disinterested. And that's really criminal when you think that the match we were hoping to get would be Ronda versus Becky, even though there's speculation now it could be Ronda versus Charlotte at WrestleMania 38.
Yeah, I do think it did seem like a bit of a chore in a way for her, which is a bit of a shame. But when she first came in, I was looking forward to seeing her, but it's a massive contrast to now. Like when she appeared at the Rumble, I thought she did a good job, but I'm not into it, to be honest, her returning, because I know what we're going to get. She's probably going to win the title at Mania, and then she's probably going to hold it for a year. If she does face Charlotte at this Mania, she's probably going to beat Becky at next year's. So it's just so predictable because we know what we saw last time. They do not book Ronda to lose. And I think the problem is when we're seeing like we're crying out for women like Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair to be a part of the big time, and now they're even further down the pecking order because Ronda's here and she's probably going to hold on to a title. So yeah, I hope it does pick up in the coming weeks with Ronda, but yeah, not very optimistic at the moment.
Absolutely. No, I can sense that as well there. But I mean, obviously you mentioned some of those names that could be worthy of the big time. Do you think there's a chance though that perhaps maybe they'll get the opportunity to mix up with Rousey? Maybe that could be an opportunity for them to perhaps elevate their career by being in there with such a, it's a mainstream star.
Yeah, I do. I definitely see where you're coming from there. And I think it could sort of build up their careers even more. But in a way, because I think Ronda will go into those matches as the face, I can't really see in her being a heel. I mean, it'd be quite interesting actually to see her as a heel, because I think the problem there is if she's going up against your Rhea Ripley's, your Liv Morgan's, and she beats them, I think the fans will turn on her. So I think they either need to turn her heel or I don't know, change something up there. But yeah, as you've said, like she can definitely give the rub to these women. So I definitely wouldn't not be interested in a program with them for sure.
Absolutely. Joe, I actually hope that she comes back on the heel route because I think that would work really well. And like you say that, I feel like there's starting already to be, there was a sort of happiness seeing her back there at the Rumble, but I feel that there's been a bit of negative backlash after Raw this week. We'll see how it goes with SmackDown. I think either if it's a babyface, she needs a mouthpiece. If it's a heel turn, then I think she can carry on as she is because people then will just dislike her. And it's okay for her to seem disinterested and not want to be there because that could maybe just be a part of the gimmick and we're all kind of got the wool over our eyes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if she's a heel, why not give her Paul Heyman?
Yes.
I think it makes sense perfectly because at the end of the day, he's the man. I know he's back to Roman Reigns now, but he's got experience with, like legitimate fighters like your Lesners. So I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
with Rousey.
I'd be very much down for that. The only one I can think of, and actually I have to give Jonesy a shout for this one. He mentioned Malcolm Bivens could be an idea as well.
Yeah, I'd love it. That guy is so underrated.
It's brilliant.
I've got a funny feeling that he's going to get released. I don't think they see anything in him, but he's such a great talker. And I think he's got that potential to be like your next Paul Heyman on TV. So hopefully I'd love to see it.
I would love to see. I think he's got potential to be one of the best managers in the business. Honestly, I think he's definitely underrated, like you said there. I'm going to ask one more question about Ronda Rousey just before we move on. This is kind of really anything to do with Elimination Chamber, or probably even Ronda Rousey to a certain degree. But now Ronda's back, is this the best chance we have, perhaps in this year, to get an Evolution 2?
Yeah, I definitely think so. That's a pretty good shout, to be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, Rousey is a draw, isn't she? Like, she's going to sell tickets, so there probably isn't a better time than to do it this year. And I think WWE's women's division is really looking strong, to be honest. Like, looking at that Rumble, I know a lot of the women in there were your legends, but they are building up some big stars. Like Rhea looked great in the Rumble. Liv and Bianca are up there. Doudrop had a great showing against Becky Lynch. So there are a lot of women on the up for sure. You can even bring in some NXT women like Raquel, Io Shirai. So yeah, definitely, I'd love to see it.
Absolutely, I certainly would as well. Though it says some great potential, great star power, some legends as well if they stick around. You know, it certainly is a potential to see there. But we'll wait and see if that will come another day. Obviously, we have one more match to go then to talk about here on the Elimination Chamber, and well, it is another Elimination Chamber match. So if that's what you were looking for, that's just what we've got for you now. And we're going to be talking about the men's Elimination Chamber match. Now, of course, the winner of this match would take on Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 34 for the Universal Championship. The notes that we know going into this, the Miz had lost the match to John Cena, so he would actually have to be one of the first people in there. We knew Elias has qualified himself to be the number 7 entrant, the last one that would come into this match. And we had some storylines going into it as well. The likes of Finn Balor never got his rematch after giving up the Universal Championship. John Cena, as Aaron mentioned at the very start of the video, obviously, where he not find himself on the WrestleMania card if he didn't win this. Braun Strowman was arguably at one of his strongest points going for a long time. Roman Reigns was 2018. Roman Reigns, you always know he was in there with a chance of victory. And Seth Rollins as well was the MVP on what was match on the Raw before this show. Of course, Seth Rollins on that night, if I'm not mistaken, bested both Roman Reigns and John Cena in that match. And of course, then was eliminated by the following competitor, which I believe was Elias. But yeah, I mean, looking at this, 7 men, first time ever. Do you reckon this is something they could do in the future with 3 men starting?
Yeah, why not? I mean, if there's that many guys sort of in and around the main event scene, then if the story calls for it, then yeah, definitely. I don't see why they couldn't.
Absolutely. Do you like the video package? Obviously, it was mainly hyping WrestleMania. We saw a bit of these guys as well.
Yeah, I did like it. As I said sort of at the beginning, I thought they did a great job of showing every single person's motive of trying to get to WrestleMania. They had like little quotes coming from all the competitors of why they wanted to get there. So yeah, it was really good.
Absolutely, indeed. There. Well, we'll just quickly go into a bit of detail just before here because what Elias does a long performance in the ring here, starting in the chamber. Obviously, he's one of those starting in the pods there. But I said, for one thing I liked, he said, though, Las Vegas said, I feel a bit weird starting in the chamber, but hey, you people in Vegas are used to seeing people, you know, behind bars. I thought it was quite a funny note there to kick things off.
That was a great line. Yeah, I did chuckle at that one.
Absolutely. And then he goes on to do his song as well. Then everyone's booing him because he starts singing. He says, do you want me just to stop and get in the pod? Everyone cheers. And he says, well, no, I just feel like I'm getting the right key, so I'm going to finish things off. I thought that was really fun as well.
Yeah, had the crowd in the palm of his hand, didn't he? How a guy goes from being totally average in NXT to sort of what he was doing on the main roster. Yeah, it's great.
This was probably the high point of Elias's career. I'm sorry to go off on such tangents of some superstars, but as many of them are still in and around in some form of the roster today. Elias is still actually character is finished. It's not an element here, having the crowd eating at the palm of his hand. Could we not just get this Elias back in front of our screens? And we have crowds back. This character suffered during the pandemic when we were in the Thunderdome. Now we have fans back. Surely he could be an asset.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And as you said, everyone's sort of been wondering whether he's going to have a character change. So that'd be interesting to see. But even if he just came back as old Elias, people know what he's about. So I definitely think he could be used on either roster.
Absolutely, destroy your favorite sports team and the city that you're in. Why not? I think he'd be
Yeah.
perfect as along with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss,
Oh, that's
because
a great show.
the heat magnet. I mean, to be fair, a lot of it's go away heat with those two, but Elias would find a way, I think, to make it where it's not as go away. And you could just see the fact that Happy Corbin would just love seeing him just bash all the towns and just them two laughing around. I think it has a dynamic where it could work. But hey, maybe
And
that's a
like the
conversation for
shirt
another day.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
absolutely.
agree with that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it fits the vibe.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Well, let's go into the match because I feel like I don't want to keep you too late on the stream. We're already an hour and
That's all
10
right.
minutes into the stream. But obviously, we get Elias interrupted, as he always famously is with these songs with Braun Strowman. I think it was after just his line about Braun Strowman in the song as well, of not being frightened about the monster on men. So Braun Strowman is in the pods. John Cena is in the pod. And Roman Reigns is the other superstar in the pod as well. So we start off the match with 3 superstars in the ring, different to usual rather than the regular 2. We don't have 5 pods, you see. We can't have a shark cage in the middle. That would be quite a worrying prospect, wouldn't it? So we get Seth Rollins, The Miz, and Finn Balor. And ironic enough, of course, Miz is IC champion. That is the triple threat that kicks off WrestleMania 34 as well, weirdly enough, to start off this match. So clearly, they're showing that they've got the chemistry in the first few minutes of this match.
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember that match at WrestleMania 34 being a great one. But yeah, this was a great way to open the match. I really, really enjoyed the opening bit with The Miz trying to team up with Seth and trying to team up with Balor, and then it turned on him. That was so great to see. And yeah, just a really good opening back and forth between all 3. The pace was light and quick. Really liked all the roll-up attempts to try and sort of eliminate one of the men. So yeah, it was a great way to start it off.
Absolutely. I think one thing as well, you mentioned there about they're trying to team up with the Finn Balor with the 2 straight. I'm sure it was the Shield as well
Yeah,
with Seth and
that
that. I
was
think
so good.
that was really, really cool to see. But I mean, this match was kind of very different to the women's match. You said that about getting the cage in straight early on. I feel like the cage wasn't used for a long time here. It almost was like
Yeah.
I was trying to make notes, but my best way of making notes for the first 5 entrants was, like you said, the pacing was good, the in-ring action was good, but really it was a slow, even though it was a fairly quick pace, it was kind of like a build to later on in the match when we got the later opponents in, because John Cena was in next. So we said the face-off with Seth Rollins. They mentioned about the 2015 rivalry, of course, with John's nose being broken. They kind of from SummerSlam 2015 rivalry. And of course, you see Seth as well, kind of going for that knee as well, missing it. We get to the point that Roman Reigns is the next one in the match there, and they carry on doing their stuff. It looks like Roman Reigns, though, obviously is taking a beating along with the other 4. And there was one other little note I want to make just before we get to entrant number 6. I love the fact that Miz was on top, everyone was on the knees, and Miz was pointing of who we should do the it kicks to, and everyone just cheered when it was Roman Reigns. And obviously, he's checking who it is, and in the end, he goes, "No, Seth is the one that got it the least. I'm going to kick him first," and then he kicks everyone. But Roman is the one in that takes the pasting the most.
I'll tell you what, Miz was so good in the opening of this match. I thought he was brilliant. But yeah, as you said there, like, because I had that down in my notes as well, that they didn't really use the cage. But as I say, everything else, like with each entrant, was really great. Like the pacing was good. I thought they told good stories as well. But yeah, really picked up a level with each entrant. So.
Absolutely. And obviously, it looked like Roman Reigns was going to get that first elimination, but then he was aware who was going to be entrant number 6, and his eyes having to lock with that pod just as the countdown began. And obviously, he decides to not go for a Superman punch or a spear of whoever was waiting on the other side of the ring. It escapes his mind at the second. Braun Strowman comes into the match. And from this point onwards, my notes. What were your thoughts of the feeling when Braun comes into this match?
Not good for everybody else. Something I did think when he came in and he started sort of knocking heads, I was like, how have they released Braun Strowman and they've signed Omos?
Yeah.
It's night and day. Like, Braun Strowman is a great wrestler. The man can move. You know, he's got great charisma. It's just I cannot understand that. But this is where the match really picked up when Strowman came in and the chamber started to get used a bit more. That's kind of where the story developed into like the main hook, where it became all about trying to eliminate Strowman. Which was, I loved it. It was cool.
It was really cool. And I have to just very quickly touch on what you were saying there. And I did have a similar thought. And I don't understand why Braun Strowman, what went wrong, because this Braun Strowman at this point was so red hot in WWE. It was the, who's going to get these hands? It was the top babyface turn. And I mean, I always said at the longest time in 2018 that the Rumble was the time for him to win it for the men. Then it was the time for him to win this chamber match. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. And obviously, then it's for me, he should have gone on to be involved in that championship match at WrestleMania, which we'll talk about more later. But instead, he ends up in a tag team match, which was mentioned early in this stream, with Nicholas defeating the Bar for the Royal Tag Team Championship. So I don't think WWE ever got how over Braun Strowman could have been. He wasn't just an attraction. He could have really been the face of the company at one point.
Yeah, definitely. They should have put the title on him here or even earlier, to be honest. And I think that's what hindered him in the end. As well, he's not the best on promos, but as you said, I think if you gave him that title, gave him the Rumble win, it would have made him an even more bigger star. But as I said, for some reason WWE didn't pull the trigger, which is absolutely baffling, considering the size of him. You know what I mean? Like, he is tailor-made for the WWE, so I cannot understand why they didn't ever pull the trigger properly on Braun, especially after. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get onto it, but like after the showing that he has in this match, it is a bit of a wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. After that showing he had, it was just incredible. And you think yourself, well, hang on, why not? But we will go into detail of that. Just one quick note as well, just to add on to it. The first single title he had was the Intercontinental Championship, which I believe was from Sami Zayn in 2020, a mere couple of months before he would go on to fill in for Roman Reigns to win the Universal Championship at WrestleMania. But otherwise, he probably would have never won the top title. That's how criminally badly misused Braun Strowman has been over the time. But let's go and talk about the wonderful time of Braun Strowman. The time we can reminisce and go, this was good. This was our monster. Do you know what I mean? Because like you said, he came in and he just dominates everyone. He used superstars as weapons against each other. He picked up Finn Balor and threw him into Roman Reigns. It was absolutely awesome. But the Miz tries to get away from Braun, climbing up the chamber, goes up the pod. And it's just a bit similar to the women's match. But if you think that Braun is, like you said, one of these sort of big guys that can't move, boy, Braun can move. Not only can he get up to the top of that pod, he catches the Miz. He bangs his head off the glass pod bit on the outside bit numerous times and then throws him off onto everyone in the middle of the ring. What a great spot.
Yeah, that was awesome, wasn't it? And as you said, like, the guy has got so much agility. Like, he can do kip-ups, for Christ's sake. We've seen him do that before. But, yeah, just seeing him rush to the top and just smash Miz's head against the glass was awesome. And the spot where he launched him off the top was just cherry on the cake. So, yeah, that was really fun to see.
It was absolutely beautiful. And if you love destruction, it just continues here because we get our first elimination. Miz is then power slammed by Braun to be eliminated from the match. And of course, then everyone's still laid out. We're waiting for entrant number 7, Elias, who is, remember, he earned that opportunity to be there. But of course, same as earlier on, he closes the pod as he doesn't want to face Braun. But different to Alexa Bliss earlier in the night, who had no protection. All the other 4 superstars in the match attacked Braun together. So Elias could just hang back and wait there. And what was really fun, we're talking those 4 superstars of Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, John Cena, Roman Reigns, 4 of them doing a shield bomb on Braun Strowman for him to kick out. What a fun spot that was.
Yeah, that was awesome. I feel like maybe they could have even done it on the the outside of the ring. That would have been cool. Maybe a bit dangerous, to be honest, because his head might have hit the chains, but no, that was really cool to see for sure.
Absolutely. And the thing is, this goes to show you what Braun Strowman was like in 2018. Cena manages to pick him up, hits the attitude adjustment. He kicks out at 1. Who kicks out at 1?
Especially out of an AA.
He's curb stomped then by Seth Rollins, who then rolls to the outside, and Finn Balor hits the coup de grace on the outside as well. And you think at this point, you've all your finishing moves, lads. Get him in and pin him. They leave him on the steel outside and start attacking each other. Was that a bit of a mistake by the 4 gents?
I think so, yeah. I think that was a bit of nitpick in this whole match, to be honest. Like, there were moments where you thought, why are they not pinning him, or why is he now stopping someone from pinning him, and stuff like that, which seemed a little bit illogical. But that's always the case in this thing, isn't it? And then the commentary try and cover up for him and say, oh, well, the lads have got to try and take advantage of each other. It's like, no, get him out, because if you get each other out, you're not going to be able to beat him, are you? Unless your name's I'm not going to say anything, actually, but always giving another spoiler away.
I'm sure people who are watching this possibly already know the result, but of course, with everybody down, of course, Elias feels that this is the opportunity. I'm going to get in this match. He attempts to pin everyone with no luck. He manages to though put his sort of like an avalanche where he sort of picks Roman up, gets him on his shoulders, spins him round, and hits a power bomb. What a cool looking spot that was there! Yeah, but of course, Roman does kick out at this point. Does kick out, and of course, it doesn't take long. Braun Strowman's back up and back in the ring. Elias sort of gets out of the way of a corner attack, attempts to do the same move to Braun Strowman. You did it to Roman Reigns, which was impressive enough. Braun's about another foot taller. He didn't get any luck, and then very quickly was power slammed and was eliminated from the match. I mean, Elias did a lot of his sort of work anyway with what he does best with the stuff, introducing everyone, doing the song before going to match, getting the natural heat. He got his little spots in here, but Elias didn't have such a long showing in the chamber, but certainly fun. And what he did show was impressive with that spot with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, exactly. I think we saw a little bit from what he can do in the ring. And as you said, like, he had his moment before the chamber match. It was kind of like comic relief in a way. And I think his story in the match was because Braun came out and sent him into the pod, and it kind of made you really want to see Braun Strowman get his hands on Elias, which did eventually happen. So that was like their little story in the match, and that paid off. So
absolutely, indeed, there. And well, I mean, obviously, we go on to our next elimination. Of course, this isn't 2010, this is 2018. John Cena's the next one eliminated. You wouldn't have thought that back in the day, would you? And he jumps off the top rope and he's caught by Braun Strowman. Again, another power slam to pick up the pinfall. Was you shocked to see Big Match John out?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose not now, because sort of knowing that around this time was when John Cena started taking the limelight off himself a little bit. But I think at the time I would have been like, wow, how is Cena not in the final two or the final three? But I always like it when they do these sort of things, because it is a big shock, and it was probably a big shock to the audience as well. And I think it makes the match even more exciting. Thought Cena did a great job of selling his disappointment, because obviously you had this big story of not having a match at WrestleMania. Commentators did a good job of putting that over as well. So yeah, it was quite shocking, but I thought it only helped the match.
It certainly did. I love it. Like you said, they mentioned there with John Cena's facials. He's sitting outside the steel structure. The camera work actually was fantastic as well. There you have to say with that. It reminded me of Shawn Michaels wanting his match with The Undertaker at 2010, kind of thing of, I'm not going to get it, I'm not going to get that moment. So John Cena going, I'm not going to get to go to WrestleMania. Turns out Big Match John got The Undertaker. But that's the rest is history. But certainly a really fun moment once again there. So we're down to the final four then of Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor as we go then next into the match. And Braun goes for Finn. Finn manages to escape. It's a couple of drop kicks. He then goes for the coup de grace on Braun's back. I thought that was quite fun, but it was no pin. Balor also gets the best of Rollins and Roman at this point as well. Hits his coup de grace on Roman, but then Braun straight away picks up and power slams him. And then Finn Balor also eliminated from the match. So Braun's on a tear here. He's absolutely eliminated everyone with a power slam so far. Just goes to show that this monster is someone to be taken seriously and was really at the high point of his career.
Yeah, definitely. And he was so over with the crowd as well. Like, the crowd were loving him. Every time he's put up his hands and roar, like, the crowd would do it along with him. And yeah, I thought, it was so unique. We've never really seen this sort of performance in Elimination Chambers where every single man has been eliminated by one guy. But yeah, it was telling a great story here of how Strowman was taking everybody out one by one. And kudos to Finn Balor as well. He had a great little showing before he got eliminated. He was on a roll. So yeah, that was cool.
He was. No, Finn Balor was definitely one of the stars in this match here, and definitely enjoyed watching him hitting his 1916s and the coup de grace and stuff. I like to say Finn Balor is such an, for me, he's still an underrated performer. I think he should be higher up the card in WWE.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him at the minute, like, especially after that great NXT run he had, but I don't know if it's ever gonna happen for Balor, which is a shame.
That's a sad thing. It does feel like it is going to be mid-card for life. You know, I've done the too sweet there, didn't I, rather than the for life. But hey, never mind. But we leave ourselves then with 3 in the ring, as we say, Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. Seth and Roman actually join forces again here to go against Braun. They get the better of him as well before, of course, inevitably Seth turns on Roman, just a bit like earlier with the women's match. Goes for the buckle bomb, and then Roman comes back and it's a Superman punch. Braun gets back up and picks up Seth. Seth is climbing away on the pod. Roman hits a Samoan drop. Roman is still on the floor. Braun sort of throws himself inside. Never mind a nitpick, but I'm going to let it go because, of course, we get a frog splash from the top of the pod then from Seth Rollins. But, of course, Seth doesn't get the pinfall here. But Braun would get the pinfall soon on Seth Rollins, who had attempted a stomp, but instead run into another power slam. So that then has to be the 5th elimination at this point for Braun Strowman, all by the power slam. I thought this little sort of trio in the match was a fun little part as well.
Yeah, definitely. I quite liked the bit where Reigns and Rollins fist bumped, sort of getting rid of all their rivalry, just teaming up for a minute to try and take on Strowman. That was really cool to see. Yeah, another nice little segment with these 3. And again, Strowman's dominance just continues to build, which is cool. I think it was quite predictable that we were probably going to get Strowman Reigns in the final 2, because I feel like commentary had kind of been teasing that a little bit with like, oh, there's so much history between these 2 guys. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And also it protects Seth Rollins as well after that nearly, hour and 15. It was like 77-minute performance on Raw. He'd been in this match. Yeah, it was the Iron Man. And it was the Iron Man here as well, the longest performer in the ring at this point, starting off the match, had been in it for goodness knows how long at this point as well as we get to the final 2. So Seth had done extremely well. But here comes what's 2018 Roman Reigns, because, of course, where Braun's been so dominant the whole match, this is the part also where Roman does a sort of jumps over the top rope to go into Strowman, to go into the cage. Braun goes to run into Roman Reigns. Roman gets out of the way and goes exploding into a pod. And then, of course, the boos really start from the crowd as we get 3 Superman punches, we get 2 spears, and we get a 1, 2, 3. Braun Strowman is put away, and your victor of this match is Roman Reigns. And, of course, not the Tribal Chief, not the head of the table, the big dog picking up the dub.
Yeah, I did like just to kick things off, I did like the pod spot with Strowman going through it. I always love it when someone goes through the pod, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, the finish was fine. I think that's kind of what we expected to see with Reigns hitting all the Superman punches and spears. And I think they did kind of keep Strowman looking strong because Reigns had to hit that many sort of maneuvers to take the big man down. But sometimes I think it's I don't know, it's like Strowman's just eliminated all these guys, which has made him look like this massive threat. And then you've kind of moved that all over to Roman Reigns because he's the one to pin Strowman. But, you know, that was WWE at the time when they put all their eggs in one basket with Roman. So, you know, it was okay. I didn't mind the finish too much. I think seeing what Roman's like now, when you go back and watch it, it doesn't seem as, you know what I mean? Like, you don't get as annoyed about it for some reason, I guess, because you know the future now, like what he's going to turn into. And obviously knowing where Strowman is these days. But yeah, it was an okay finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. You hit the nail on the head there. Like, it's an okay finish. And like I say, like you said, sorry, there, I actually don't feel as annoyed watching it now, whereas I did probably then. I remember watching this show live when it happened back in 2018. I remember like being, you know, when you get that point where it's UK and you feel like, oh, I'm extremely tired here and who's going to win it? And you think, oh, would win it, you know, at this time. Because I really felt in my heart, and I still feel at this point, this was the time to push Braun Strowman and make him a megastar. And I do think we'll go on to talk about after the match as well here, where, you know, he destroys Roman Reigns and throws him through a pod and does a couple of power slams on him to close off the show. I feel that this could have been a way to have made that into a triple threat match, that we could have had Brock, Roman and Braun at WrestleMania rather than Braun just kind of being left in a limb with nothing to do.
Yeah, WWE aren't that clever, are they? I think it was just the same thing as Nia Jax. Like, they just wanted Strowman to get the heat back. They didn't want him to look weak in any way. So, you know, they thought they'd give him the beat down at the end. But yeah, I agree with you. They could have made something of this. Even if he sort of came out on Monday Night Raw and brutally attacked Brock Lesnar or something like that, and, you know, demanded to be entered into the match after his performance in the chamber. But yeah, it wasn't to be, was it? So it's unfortunate it didn't really come of anything, but I suppose I can understand like why they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see why they would do it as well, because obviously that was the time, and they wanted to push Roman. It was all about the big dog at that point. But to go then through the timing then of this match and the star rating before we give our star rating, this was 40 minutes and 15 seconds. This was easily the longest match of the night, and I think it was about 50 minutes with the entrances. Dave Meltzer gives us a 3.75 rating. What would be your star rating for this match?
I really enjoyed it. I'd give it a 4.5 personally. Just a slight step up from the women's. I thought the storytelling was just as good as the women's. I did think they used the chamber as well, but I thought it was really exciting. I thought, as I said earlier, every time there was an entrant, like the story developed and the pacing got quicker and it got more exciting. And then as soon as Strowman came in, this when things really kicked off. I absolutely love the story they were trying to tell with all of the guys teaming up. And you had all these little teams with like Reigns and Seth. You had the history with Cena and Rollins and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thought it was a great chamber match.
I thought it was fantastic as well. I'm going to go with 4.25, the same rating as the women's. And one little note, like you said there, they didn't have as much of the chamber spots, probably is what takes away from it for getting a higher grade. But the story of it, especially even though with the start of it, but the way that it grew into it and the way that it kind of finished with that last sort of 15, 20 minutes was absolutely phenomenal. From that point onwards, it felt like a 5-star match for me. I like the fact they didn't use the chambers match, though, because it meant that the women's moments earlier in the night felt more special rather than seeing the same moments twice. So for me, I'm going to go with a 4.25 for me as a rating with that there. And obviously, then we need to give our rating for the entire show for Elimination Chamber 2018. What would be your 5-star rating for this show?
I think I would go maybe 3.5, 3.75. Two really good matches, either at the start and the end, and the middle was just okay. Obviously, the women's title match was pretty good, but two of the matches kind of let it down. So I'd go with either one of those ratings, I think.
I think that's a really sensible rating. I would go around the same area, 3. Originally, I was thinking 3.5, but when I hear 3.75, I'm like, that feels kind of right for this. Because like you say, the two chamber matches were phenomenal. I think the contract signing with Ronda Rousey was done really, really well. I enjoyed Asuka versus Nia Jax as well. Like you say, it's Matt Hardy, Bray Wyatt, and the Balor and Titus Worldwide that takes away from it. You don't really count the kickoff match, really, because the kickoff WWE make you feel like it's not really part of the show anyway. But certainly, as it's a match included, we like to briefly discuss it. But yeah, I think 3.75 seems quite fair there. And would that mean that on the night?
Oh, sorry, could you just repeat that again, mate?
I lost you there for a second, Aaron. I'll ask you that question again if you don't mind.
Yeah. Go for
it. What was your favourite match of the night?
The men's chamber match, I think, just about. I really did like the women's chamber match, but yeah, as I said, I think the men's did just tip it for me. I think it was just slightly more exciting. But it was a close one, but yeah, I'd go for the men's chamber match.
Absolutely. Well, I think I gave both of them the same rating. And I think just for historical purposes, you always remember the first. So for me, I will go with the women's chamber match as my favourite of the night, just because I remember at the time it being my favourite. And going back over it, it didn't disappoint. It still loved up to everything. But the men's chamber match, I remember, obviously, I said I was very tired when I watched it live the first time. I do think I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that more this time round watching it. Obviously, it was a bit more of a reason of, wow, I'm watching this. So, for me, that was really, really good. But I will ask you another question as well, just before we close things off here today. I'd like to know, what is your favourite Elimination Chamber match of all time?
Oh, put me on the spot there.
I am, aren't I? Putting you right on
Honestly, I can't remember everything from like the early sort of 2010s and maybe like late noughties. That kind of all just blends into one, if I'm honest with you. Like I feel like I have seen them all, but they do really blend. I really like the third one, New Year's Revolution, I think it was.
Yes.
I think Triple H won that one. I do like that one. Obviously, the first one is really good as well, with Michaels winning. And I think there was one, I think it might have been 2015. I think it was when SmackDown, they had their roster split, and it was SmackDown. I think there might have been like AJ, maybe Ambrose and Cena.
Yes, that was actually the 2017 one with Bray winning the championship.
Oh, was it?
Yes, that
was
the one.
It might have been that one that I really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, these two are right up there as well. Like they were great chamber matches, but I'd probably go 2005, I think.
2005, yeah, it's a great match one, a great shout as well. There's some very talented performers in that one there, and well, I mean that's pretty much it of all we've got to discuss on this show here. I think it's been a really fun live stream to be a part of, and I want to say thank you, Aaron, for being a part of it. For those that are not aware of your channel, why aren't you by now? Aaron's been on the channel many times. Tell anyone about Wrestling by Wooldridge.
Yeah, no, well, first of all, thanks for having me on this, Steve. It was a massive privilege to be a part of the return of SCW Rewind, which is awesome. Yeah, so as I said at the start, I mainly do sort of analysis videos. I have taken a little break from it whilst I've done like predictions and stuff, but I am bringing back under analysis where I pick a match from history or a different company and I try and break it down into sort of detail and I go through the build and everything like that. And then I try and rate the match a little differently to how Dave Meltzer rates it. So I kind of break it down into five different areas. So that should be releasing next week. So please check it out. I've got other videos on the channel as well. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Steve. I do appreciate it.
It's great to always have you apart. I always enjoy having the analytical assassin. I'm going to use it as often as I can when I use these. And you know, but the thing is as well, we've got series 2 of that coming up, and there's obviously 10 episodes already available for people to go and check out. The likes of Bret Hart, Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13, one of the greatest matches of all time. Probably your favorite match as well, if I'm not mistaken, the Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 21. So there's lots of good ones, even modern ones like Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes from Double or Nothing.
Yeah, definitely. I've tried to sort of. What I try and do is do ones from sort of pick one from different eras and different promotions, so it's not all from the same era. But yeah, I think the first season was kind of like a love letter to myself in a way. So I kind of like had like my favorite match and some of what I thought the best matches and stuff. Like I got TLC 2 in there, but yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to getting season 2, trying to improve things a little bit. So hopefully it should be a little bit more enjoyable as well. But I've got to say, Steve, you've been absolutely killing it, to be honest. Like videos every day, and I'm watching all of them. They're absolutely fantastic. So yeah, keep up the great work, man. I'm loving it.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot, dude. And I've got to say, it's WrestleMania season, trying to get as much out there. And of course, if anyone is watching this video for the first time, watching the channel for the first time, it's a great excuse to say, why not like the video? Why not comment as well what you thought about our opinions? Do you agree with them? What are your star ratings of the matches? What were your favorite moments? Maybe the stuff you didn't like. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Maybe subscribe as well. Subscribe to the channel and also hit that beautiful bell as well. The notifications one lets you know each and every time a video is released. So just like Aaron, you can actually watch a video every time it comes out. I've got a fantasy booking video for Elimination Chamber 2022 already. Yeah, interesting with some of the news.
That's a great video
today. Thank you. It's kind of changed.
That's a very good video. I recommend it.
It's changed a little bit though with today's news with Shane McMahon, but still, I think it's a brilliant watch. If people can go out there and watch it, just ignore that he was meant to be the special guest referee. You can still do everything else involved with it. But yeah, I think it's definitely a fun video. Go and check out. Highly recommend it. And there'll be more videos as well as we go in towards WrestleMania. But this has been SCW Rewind, returning then, of course, with the Elimination Chamber 2018 retro review. The next ones that will be on the channel will be WrestleMania. And just to make it a bit of fun as well, I may let everyone vote for which one we go for. So there we go. WrestleMania, the big time. You can have your say on what we will be reviewing. But that's all from us, mate. Aaron, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you everyone that's been watching as well. If you're watching on delay as well, thank you so much. Have yourselves a great day. Be watching SCW. Go and check out Wrestling by Wooldridge as well. Check out some of my videos as well on the channel if you've got some spare time for the rest of your day. All the best, and we'll see you very, very soon. Take care.